You got a right to be here, you got a right to fight. Access, access, no sacrifice. We're here and we're gonna stay.
We're at the Palmer House Hotel protesting the Paul Ryan budget that was proposed to Congress. He's in this hotel right now, and a few people had gone in to try and talk with him, possibly trying to convince him to come back out and talk to us. So far, we haven't heard anything back yet,
I'm William McNary, and I'm the president of an organization called U.S. Action, and I'm the co-director of its Illinois affiliate, Citizen Action Illinois. And we're here today to give Representative Paul Ryan the proper greeting. He has just produced a budget that slashes Medicare, that slashes Medicaid. He's introduced a budget that's a roadmap to beginning to cut Social Security benefits. He eliminates the Affordable Health Care Act. He's done all of this and has every Republican, with the exception of 4 in the House, voted for this budget, and no Democrats voted for it, and now it sits in the Senate. And to add insult to injury, it also begins to give even more tax cuts, not less or the same, even more tax cuts to the rich. Now, he's been called courageous, but it's not courageous to balance the budgets on the backs of the sick and the poor and the elderly. It's more courageous to take the fight where it belongs to the people who benefited from the supply side economics. The rich are as rich as ever, and now they're being given more tax cuts. That's not the way. That's not the America I grew up in. That's not the America I want to live in. I want an America that works for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, we're here with Adam Ballard of ADAPT, and he's going to tell us his point of view of what's been going on today and what we have to look forward to.
Yeah, so we're here down by the Palmer House because Representative Ryan is here speaking to the Economic Club of Chicago about how wonderful his plan to kill people with disabilities is and how much money it's going to save the government. So we wanted to be part of this, make sure that he knew we were here. And actually, National ADAPT was in Washington last week, following him around town and just trying to pleasantly get a meeting with him, but he turned us down. And so over 100 of us ended up getting arrested because he let that happen, because he'd rather see people with disabilities in jail. He'd rather see us dying on the streets than to speak with us for 5 minutes and hear the truth that Medicaid block grants will kill people with disabilities. It's not something that he wants to hear, but it's true. If Medicaid goes to block grants, that will reduce the amount of money available to each state by a whole lot. And then he says, trust the states to know how to spend their own Medicaid dollars. And we all know what that means. That'll mean more institutions, more nursing homes, because especially here in Illinois, the nursing home lobby is very powerful in Springfield. So if we give the state absolute control over Medicaid dollars, we'll see the slight progress we've seen over the past 10, 20 years start to reverse and erode, and we don't want to see that. So we're here hoping to get a word with the congressman. He's upstairs, in his swanky ballroom being feted, but we're out here in the streets, and we'll be here. We'll be here. This is far from over. We'll continue to follow him around wherever we need to go to get a word with the congressman. Thank you.
Say no to Paul Ryan's budget. Say no to Paul Ryan's budget. Say no to Paul Ryan's budget.
Man, I can't get over that film. Representative Ryan, you really suck. You treat people like money instead of like human beings. You're just looking at dollars instead of people. And Tom Wilson from Access Living is here with us today to talk about what's going to be going on with the Illinois budget.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, that's fine, Barb. I just wanted to add some comments on that film too. Our job gets harder here in the States as the federal government starts cutting its budget. If they were to block grant Medicaid, that would mean a lot less dollars coming to the state, and we already have a budget crisis here.
And for those that don't, maybe some viewers might not understand what a block grant actually is. So what happens?
Well, right now, Medicaid is a federal state split. and different states get a different percentage of the split. Illinois, it's 50-50 with the federal government on Medicaid. And now these programs are entitlements, meaning if you need these services, the state has to provide some of them. And then when the bills come in, the state gets reimbursed 50% by the federal government. If it were to be a block grant, it means that the federal government would budget a certain amount of dollars and then just give that to the state. And what we see with block grants is that usually the amount of money is frozen or even goes down over time, meaning the state will lose a lot of funding. In this case, it'd be billions of dollars, according to what Representative Ryan's budget would do. You know, Ryan is from Wisconsin, our neighboring state here, and he's trying to destroy Medicare, Medicaid, just like that video talks about.
And he wants to gut Social Security as well.
Yeah, he's a scary guy. And, you know, they just want to take away billions from what we see as essential services for people with disabilities, for seniors, for children, for people that need services.
How can people possibly survive?
I don't know. And in Illinois, we have a challenge in our budget, too. You know, the governor last January or February proposed cuts of $900 million to human services this last January. And actually, Madigan was made a budget proposal that would cut $2 billion from human services. So we've been in Springfield a lot lately fighting to preserve the home services program, which provides in-home care for people with disabilities. I think you use that program, right?
I use that, yes. And if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to function.
There's other things they want to cut. The funding for Centers for Independent Living, where I work. We help move people out of nursing homes. We help people live independently. We help people find affordable housing. We have youth programs. We have employment programs. We do civil rights law. We have so many things, and yet they want to cut our funding. They want to cut the program that would help move people out of nursing homes and back into the community. They want to cut the circuit breaker. They want to cut the Illinois Cares RX, which is a prescription drug program that helps people pay for their drugs. They want to cut the funding on group homes, and they also are cutting mental health services. So, you know, this budget is a disaster for people with disabilities.
And also for people going through substance abuse and addictions
That's
as well.
another program that's getting cut. You're right. And, you know, with the home services program, they want to make it Medicaid only, which means that people now who work would not be able to qualify for the program. So you're forcing them to choose between their job and their services. And most people can't live without their services. So it's a really bad idea. It's forcing people with disabilities who have jobs out of the employment market. And the other thing they want to do is put caps on hours. And we know that many people don't get any extra hours as it is, but they want to reduce people's hours. So that's a very serious cut in the home services program.
And to my understanding as well, Ryan wants to privatize Medicare. Now, when you privatize Medicare, it's just you break it all up where it goes to insurance companies.
Yes.
And then they get to decide how much that person's going to get or how much coverage that they're going to get or if they're going to be eliminated from a certain coverage.
They get a voucher that they can spend on insurance. But we know insurance companies are very inefficient. A lot of the money that they spend is on overhead, like 20 or 25%. And, you know, we know that Medicare, only spends 3% on overhead. So, you know, this would be a gift to the corporations, which is what our government seems to be really good at.
And I think like 30% right off the bat with health care alone, I think, doesn't 30% go towards administration costs?
You know, there's been lots of studies on this.
What a waste.
And, yeah, we have a very a segmented system with every insurance company. You report the things differently. You know, the hospitals hire lots of administrative staff. The insurance companies have buildings full of accountants and paper checkers and paper processors.
Nice buildings too.
Nice buildings. Some of them are made from marble.
Yeah.
But do they provide health care? No, they do not.
No, they don't.
And so that 30% is wasted. They talk about Canadian hospitals where the billing department might be 5 people, while in the same size hospital in the U.S. it might be, 300 people in the billing department.
Right.
So, our system is very wasteful, and it's very expensive, and it doesn't provide very good care.
And Illinois is the most taxed state throughout the country, if I'm not mistaken.
No, that's not quite true.
Really?
Illinois, even though we raised taxes in January, still has a lower income tax than most other states in this country.
I didn't know that.
And we also have a flat tax, which unfortunately is not fair. What we should do is change our state constitution so we can tax people who have more money at a higher rate.
Right, right.
That would solve our problems, or a lot of them. I just wanted to comment on the budget battle, though.
Yes.
People from Access Living have gone to Springfield 6 times. I know you've gone, Barb.
We'll be going tomorrow as well.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. And we've been making some progress on the issues that are important to us. They've been chiseling away or sliding back some of the cuts that we're concerned about. We think that we've made them drop the Medicaid only for the time being, and we think that they've dropped the caps at this point.
Okay.
So that's really good news. I know that there's some talk that the circuit breaker is being restored, and that they're putting some money into the drug program.
Quick question. Now, all these things that you have just pointed out, would these things have been effective July 1st?
They would go into effect July 1st, and we still don't have a budget. So these things that I'm telling you are just what we're hearing.
Okay.
But the budget is not passed as of the time we're speaking now. And the reconciliation between the Senate budget, the House budget, and the governor's version has not been done. So that's one reason we're going to Springfield again tomorrow, is to make sure they hear our message loud and clear that we don't accept these cuts.
Right.
And we have about 40 people going tomorrow. And we've had, I would say, literally well over 100 people go to Springfield over this session. So people with disabilities have been mobilized, and we are fighting back against these awful budget cuts.
And we must continue to fight back, because if we don't fight back, we're being passive when we're saying it's okay to cut our services, it's okay to cut our Social Security, it's okay to cut our health care. If you want to,
it's not okay with me.
Not me either.
Okay. Thank you, Barb.
Thanks a lot, Tom.
Yep.
This segment, we're going to be talking about Social Security. My first guest is the director of the Alliance for Retired Americans, and Emily Stuart. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And our next guest he is from Access Living. He is Renee Luna. Renee, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
We're having a real problem with this Representative Ryan, because he's claiming that the deficit, he wants to gut Social Security because he's claiming that it's hurting the deficit. Truth or myth?
Myth. Social Security has not in any way contributed to the deficit. Congressman Paul Ryan, who's a Republican from Wisconsin, he is the chairman of the House Budget Committee. And so he was in charge of writing the Republicans' proposed budget for 2012. And within it, as you said, it contains changes to Social Security, including increasing the retirement age to 69. And they also want to allow Congress to make fast-track changes to it. And I can explain that if you want.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. So what their budget proposes is that Social Security needs to remain solvent through 75 years. So solvent just means that it isn't broke, essentially. each year the Social Security trustees, which is the people that are in charge of keeping track of the finances of Social Security, they come out with an annual report that estimates through how many years Social Security is solvent. So this budget says, well, if the trustees' report does not estimate that Social Security will be solvent through 75 years, say it's only 50 years, then we will give the president the ability to make a recommendation to Congress on how to fix Social Security for that year. And then Congress will just do an up or down vote on it, which, as I'm sure you know, is a little bit different than how legislation usually moves through Congress.
Well, how is it different?
Yeah, well, usually a bill is introduced, then it is voted out of committee, and then it goes to the floor of the House or the Senate, and then it's voted out of there, and then it moves on to the next chamber, and then it goes. So the point I'm making is that if Congress is allowed to just have an up or down vote on the recommendation from the president, there will be less chance for debate, less chance from input from people like us, and yeah, less democratic. So it's a tricky way of opening up Social Security to potentially some really drastic changes. I mean, imagine if we had President George W. Bush in office. Oh
God,
and
a nightmare.
Right, and he made the recommendation to privatize Social Security, which he actually did during his time as president.
And so, along with Social Security, would go Medicare as well? If Ryan were to get his way, which he's not going to get his way, but
right,
that would have an effect on Medicare as well, right?
Yes. Paul Ryan's budget, the Republicans' budget in the House, also proposes changing Medicare into a voucher program, which I can explain, and also gutting Medicaid.
And it's all complex, so please
Yeah.
explain.
Okay.
Please do.
Okay. Well, I'll explain Medicaid first. So their budget proposes doing two things to Medicaid. One, it wants to slash the Medicaid budget by about 1/3, which is a lot. They also want to change Medicaid into a block grant program. So I'll explain what that means. So right now, the federal government gives states a certain amount of money for their Medicaid program based on how many people in that state are eligible. If it were changed into a block grant program, the states would just get a fixed amount of money, and it would not be based on how many people are eligible in the state.
That wouldn't matter, huh?
And right, so the fear is that states who are already broke, especially here in Illinois and in many other states, would not be able to make up for that decrease in the federal payments.
So then what's the result?
So then they will either have Medicaid beneficiaries pay more for the benefit, you know, pass on the cost to them, or change the eligibility standards so that less people are eligible, and therefore the state doesn't have to pay extra money to make up the lack of money it's getting from the federal government. So 62% of spending for long-term care in the U.S. comes from Medicaid. And
then you have to figure how much on the dollar is Medicaid going to institutions. That's
Right.
where a lot of money is wasted, unnecessarily
Right.
institutionalized.
Yeah. Yeah. And right. So that's that affects both seniors and people with disabilities that need
And children that are on the
Yeah.
assistance too. And
Right.
basically, if you get the block grant, if a state gets a block grant and they run out of money, you're SOL after that. You have to figure out, the state has to figure out where the hell they're going to get that money. So block grants are horrible things to consider.
And I can add to that.
Yeah, please.
Even if they do lessen the number of people receiving services by, as Emily said, by changing the eligibility standards, those people who are eligible may not get the range of services that they need, like a wheelchair and other equipment, things that Medicaid currently pays for. You mentioned people who are in institutions. We want that money to go to get people out of institutions. That means less money would be available for that. We know the nursing home lobby is powerful, so that equation wouldn't change very much. They'd continue to keep those dollars for themselves. We would have to increase our advocacy to ensure that Medicaid monies continue to be used to deinstitutionalize people.
Exactly. So maybe Renee or Emily, maybe you could shed some light on this for me. What is Ryan's reason for doing all these cuts, aside from the money part? I mean, I'm just really shocked at people that voted him into office, and now he's going to turn around and cut their services. What's his strategy? Does he want the money to go to the corporations, I take it? The money to go to more institutions? And that's the other thing is, I believe 80% of the dollar from Medicaid goes towards institutions. Right there is wrong. It needs, community services needs to be as much as, if not more, funding than institutions. So right there, that creates another economic barrier, as well as another health care barrier.
Well, why is Congressman Paul Ryan proposing these cuts? Why are the Republicans proposing these cuts?
What's wrong with him?
Well, I think they would say their argument, or at least what they're saying, is that we are spending more than we're bringing in as the federal budget. And we actually do need to raise our debt limit by early August. And they are saying that if we do not, we will not vote for raising the debt ceiling unless there are some cuts. What I think is interesting is that within the Republicans' budget, there are massive tax cuts for the wealthy. And I don't understand why they are slashing America's safety net to give tax cuts to the wealthy. And then claim we're spending more than we're bringing in, because giving a tax cut is spending. I mean, we are losing revenue when we do tax cuts.
There's a lot of waste with the system, with the programs, with the services. And then if they're going to do this, it's going to make it even more screwed up.
The Republicans' budget really won't do a whole lot to fix the deficit, because we're cutting that spending from Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security and giving so much of it to tax cuts that it's really not going to balance the budget.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is politics. I think Republicans and the Tea Party Tea Party in particular, have an anti-government philosophy, which they claim is a libertarian philosophy. Libertarians traditionally don't like much to do with government. They don't think it plays an important role. However, since over the last, since the Great Depression, we know that the government is essential to keeping people out of poverty and to keeping a quality of life in this country for all Americans. So beyond national security, which libertarians support, some mostly, usually, they don't feel that the government ought to be providing for the welfare of the people, for the quality of life for our people. Obviously, they're playing on those interests that appeal towards self-interest. And that philosophy is geared towards business and corporate interest to enhance their quality of life. And unfortunately, there's somewhat of a social Darwinism here, particularly when it comes to people with disabilities. Those that can't provide for themselves will just have to do the best they can. And that's not the kind of society that we believe in. The disability rights movement has fought for equality. We believe in freedom for all people, but we also believe that there ought to be equality, that we ought to have some minimum standards that we all should have. And it's material. It's not simply philosophical. We're talking about people's lives and what they do. People who are poor don't have the same kind of access to society. We're very marginalized. So when it comes down to this, I think they're creating greater division, social division. They're creating class conflict. And if you've ever heard of Warren Buffett, he understands, he's a rich man. He understands that there's a class conflict in this country, and he understands that his side is winning. The rich are winning.
I hate to wrap this up, but we have to go. I would love to do a little picnic on Representative Ryan's front lawn. We should all set something up. Let's get some people from nursing homes too. Let's have a nice little picnic on his lawn. With that, thank you so much for coming on our show.
Access, access, demonstrate your rights. You got a right to be here, you got a right to fight. Access, access, no sacrifice. We're here and we're gonna stay. You're banners from your services, your barricades, your pubs. You're banners from your restaurants, your sleazy nightclubs. The balloons